welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. As always, we are looking at 11 games here, Nate, on February the 10th, Friday, to end your work week. We are going to be bringing you a couple game videos and our player props as we're bringing you each and every weekday. So like and subscribe to that page. And this one, we're taking a look at the 76ers playing host to the New York Knicks. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all of the great written content we have for you guys and use that odds finder tool out there. Make sure you're getting all the best odds available to you guys across these U.S. sports books this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this 11-game slate and then talk about our game, 76ers and Knicks.
Yeah, it's the day after the trade deadline, so it's going to be a bit of a mess, searching through who's actually going to play, who got to town, who cleared a physical. But we think the games we highlighted, we at least have a good idea here. Spurs at Pistons, nobody really cares about that one. +3 are San Antonio. Then we break down Knicks +5.5 at Philly, total of 229. Suns with all those guys, shipped out. I mean, Durant's not playing until after the All-Star break, and they're +1 on a back-to-back in Indiana. Hornets +11 at Boston. Celtics listing a number of guys as questionable. Jazz +7.5 at the Raptors. Wolves are +9 at Memphis. That game, to me, really hinges on whether Rudy Gobert is going to play. It seems like he should. Rockets +10 at the Heat, who have a ton of guys questionable. Luka is questionable for the Mavs. Could see the first Luka-Kyrie tandem, and they're +2 at the Kings. And then the other game we break down, Thunder +4 at Portland. Total of 242 out there. 229 total for this matchup. I imagine that's going to be bet down as we record this here on Thursday night. I can't imagine people are at all interested in the over after seeing the way these teams played each other last time out, after the pace at which they've both been playing at. In fact, both their games were played, their previous games, at an 88 pace. Boston and Philly just dragging one out. The Sixers only allowed 10 free throw attempts, which I didn't even know was possible in a competitive game in the NBA anymore. But they held Boston in check, and their Embiid and their offense was not able to explode despite Luke Kornet being out there for most of the game, as the Celtics missing their centers. But the Knicks have really gotten back to playing that Tibbs drawn out style after, surprisingly a lot of shootouts. I mean, that one with Brooklyn, overtime with Lakers. Since then, 3-1 to the under in their last 4, pace under 92. And where they're scoring is a bit of a concern. I mean, not in the paint. No Mitchell Robinson still here. And the 5th highest percentage of their points are off threes. And Philly is actually an elite 3-point defense this year in general, and limiting them very well at home. I mean, the lineups both these teams are going to throw out here, it's kind of mirror images, right? It's Jalen and Julius pick and roll. It's Harden and Embiid pick and roll. And then 2 3-and-D guys in the corner. Whether that's their skill set or not, that's what they're relegated to. Like, quickly just sitting there with a tiny usage rate. Jericho Sims, and then you got PJ Tucker with his 3% usage rate out there for the Sixers. And there's just a lot of ways that the offense can sputter, even if Embiid and Harden continue to put up their 35 and 20 and do their thing. It's just hard to imagine the entire team lighting it up. I mean, Maxey has really cooled off the bench, and maybe it's some of that's the matchup, right? I mean, playing Orlando twice, but this is what Philly does in division games like this, because there are so many black and blue games in the Atlantic. Since 2021, I mean, they're going under at about a 60% clip in the division, 60% clip when they have a rest disadvantage too. And I think that's the bigger thing here that makes me lean both Knicks and under. I like the under more than the spread. Let me be clear there. But Knicks having 2 days off here versus the Sixers playing one of those hard knocker games against the Celtics, and just being in a bit of a rut since Embiid's MVP showcase there against the Nuggets. Their last 5, their offense has just been very ho-hum, highly dependent on free throws. And while the Knicks are giving up a lot of free throws lately, I think they can limit that. And I think the Sixers can limit what the Knicks have been trying to do in terms of get it going from beyond the arc. So I don't think we'll see a lot of points here, just like 5 days ago when these teams met.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the numbers that draw your eye about them being slow and sluggish on offense in the last five for the 76ers, two of them came against the Magic. One was against those Knicks to help our point here. And then that Celtics game that we thought might have a few more points, maybe we should just listen to the Sixers and when they tell us that when they play Eastern Conference teams to this capacity, they're going to go under. They had that over versus the Nets. That was like a Saturday night game. They ended up, I think, in overtime and having like 270 points in that game. But it was expected to go 224 and a half. There was a couple guys missing. So when Embiid is in and the offense is give him the ball, it's a pick and roll, but like 70% of the time that you roll with him and he's rolling, give him the ball. That is the offense, and James Harden has conceded it since the beginning of the season. Good on him, to be honest. And when it is that style of play, and the Knicks have shown, to your point, they're down to sort of keep one guy on Embiid and then one guy with an eye on him, but never just collapse with a double team because they're happy to keep the shooters off of him. They know that Embiid is going to tire. They're happy to let him have like 20 points at halftime and be, the one shooting the ball 17 times in the first half, etc. Like, that's fine. And the thing they can't do is give up 19 free throws like they did last game, which still didn't kill them because James Harden, who usually averages close to 25 against them since he's joined the 76ers, only had 12 points in that game, going 0 for 4 from 3. And the Knicks really brought it in the second half in that one. So, take what you will from that one. There was no RJ Barrett either. Not that I really think that has a huge impact. I think he'll be fine in this game and his normal impact. But the point being, like, he's not really impacting necessarily the amount of points that they're scoring. And it does just feel, like you said, because of the slow pace that they're playing at both these teams. I mean, the Knicks' slowest pace, like you said, back to their ways, slowest pace over the course of, pretty much the season. But the last 5 on the road, playing at that 93.94 pace is really interesting, especially because they're so bad on defense right now with that 125 defensive rating in those games. But you look at who they were playing on the road. I mean, they did keep the Magic to under 100 points. But then they played a Nets team who went off, a Celtics team, in Boston, we know what they do. And then the Raptors just own them, and a Hawks team. So, like, all these teams are these super fast-paced, not rely on big men to score for them or be the focal point of their offense. Everything comes from the wing, and that's just not the style that the 76ers play. The Magic, same way. It's not like they're going like guard. They're going big man heavy, a lot of mid-range, but a lot of big guys shooting over other people, hopefully as close to the rim as possible. Same as the Knicks, essentially, right? Like Julius Randle, even Jalen Brunson wants to get inside and do his work in there. And if Embiid's standing there, then that's just not an option for him at that point, nearly as much as it would be. So I think both these teams know each other. Tibbs knows exactly how to do what he needs to do to slow down this offense. And this defense, they really, I think there's a little brother syndrome for them with the Knicks. Like, they've owned them for seasons. They've been atop the division, well above them for seasons and seasons. And so they're, that continues to be the way that when Embiid plays them, they know that he's always far and away the best player on the court. And the game goes through him. It slows it down. The Knicks have been limiting free throws a little bit better just to finish it all. 9th best on the road in their last 10 road games in terms of limiting the opponent free throws, but also getting to the line only 20 times a game themselves, which keeps the game from slowing down too much. But neither of them are trying to fast break, so you can just depend on everything just being slow, half pace, half court offense. Keep this game to under 230 for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Knicks don't exploit what Philly's biggest weakness is, which is transition. They're like bottom 6 fast break points off turnover over the last couple weeks. And yeah, if it's going to be a half court game, I think both are comfortable because they're playing through Brunson the way they're playing through Harden on the other end. But yeah, big brother, little brother. Recently in these spots, I've been leaning towards the Knicks because they're no longer they're seeing that number with that how bad they are against teams above 500 and starting to respond. And Philly just kind of in the funk in a long letdown here again since they got so up for that Nuggets game. I mentioned the numbers against the total. When they're on a rest disadvantage or when they're in these divisions games, it's the same thing against the spread for them too. So we're right on the average margin of victory for them in this spot at 5 points per game. I would lean towards Knicks and the under, and maybe it is an opportunity to tease it because plus 9.5. As long as the Knicks are competitive, I don't see them by losing by too much more than that in Philly. I mean, Yeah, a lot of these road results, they're far and away. They're on the West Coast or whatever. But a Knicks Philly game is really just like almost across town
Yeah, no,
series.
for sure. Yeah, it's a 4 hour bus ride. Not that I'm sure they're taking one, but if you did want to look that up, but yeah,
4 hour bus, 90-minute train ride.
90-minute train ride. Yeah, exactly. You just got too much traffic on 80 over there.
Yeah, I want to target this Blazers game, and I know they're going to be worse for the wear long term without Josh Hart and Gary Payton. Like literally, what are you doing, new GM? Other than I guess trying to just have an entertaining product on the floor for the rest of the season, and then play another long game because this was the biggest weakness of the Blazers is their perimeter defense, and he traded away your best two perimeter defenders. Good job. For Cam Reddish, a guy who's just going to be another gunner, best case scenario, hopefully hits a bunch of threes alongside Dame and Simons. And I don't think you can feel comfortable taking an under on the Blazers until further notice based on this. But, I mean, they do have some guys coming in that I trust to man the front court at least and not make it, a total red carpet to the rim. And defending the rim is really what you have to worry about with SGA and the Thunder. I mean, they're shooting such a lower percentage on the road as well since the start of this year, 36% versus 45% at home from deep. It's scoring 10 points per game fewer on the road. For them, I really, I talked exactly this same game when they were going to Golden State earlier in the week. Just that, we worry about the Thunder covering the spread, but that's when it was like 8 or 9 as road dogs, and now they because they have that reputation and they're getting 4. They're not that good. I mean, they're a team that people used to rest their guys against. They beat the Nuggets without Jokic and Murray. Couldn't handle it as road favorites yet again in Houston. And then, of course, they get smacked by the Warriors. And so now they're getting that respect again because they won at the Lakers. And that's a different, that's a one-off in my mind. That was their Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, the young guys stepped up in a big way. Jalen Williams, the second most points of his career. The team shot 50% from three. They shot 18 for 20 at the line. It was all the pressure on the Lakers and the Thunder just having fun playing with house money. But that's exhausting for them too. And now third game in 4 nights, still on the road here, where they're just far worse in terms of offensively, and where they've been really, really bad in the clutch, and bad in the clutch wherever they were. Aside from even including that Lakers game, they're still 28th in net rating in the clutch their last 6 here. And guess who's number 1? Dame time. Damian Lillard, who was very visibly pissed when he saw that Josh Hart, or just kind of shocked that Josh Hart was shipped out of town, because again, what are we doing here? He thought we were turning the page with Portland. I mean, in any case, he's playing like a superhero, and I think if he has added motivation because he's pissed about anything, it's trouble for OKC. He's been cold against them in his last 3. To me, that means he's due, not that they have some sort of recipe. And I mean, OKC is not defending point guards well at all this year. 6th most points per game to them. So I think Dame, I think I would look at some player performance doubles here, because it is a bit of a skeleton crew. If Cam Reddish isn't ready to play, of course, it's just going to be Dame. Huge usage rate once again, doing it all. 30 to 35 plus in a win are definitely some player performance doubles to look at here.
All right. Hear you on all that. The only thing is I don't think they can stop Shai Gilgeous either, by the way. It's Shai, not Shea. But I don't think they can stop SGA the way they haven't. I mean, I know this is a little bit of a stretch here, but the Thunder have beat the Blazers 4 games in a row. Now, the last 2, really the last 3, were at home. Dame didn't play in the first 2. Last season, Dame was, we know what was happening with him. He might have even played a little bit in one of those matchups in April or whatever when he got back for a game or 2, but it was pretty much nothing. He was still nursing that abdominal strain. So the 2 in December that were pretty much back to back in the middle of that Blazers slide, I think they lost 7 in a row at that point in time. Dame was in both those games, and he did go off enough, like not necessarily off in terms of Dame going off, right? Like in the most recent one, we're talking about 28 points for him in 39 minutes, not like the most Dame efficiency or even total, but in the one before that, 16 points where he was kind of held. Now this is all at home, like you were saying, some splits for the Thunder. That game was kept low as well, where it wasn't sort of your typical Blazers and really Thunder style game, especially in this setting where it's now the Blazers back at home, and you really, I would be scared to take an under on them going, at home. The problem was they were playing a Bucks team last time, and they still went over they went under against that Bucks team because there was such a massive total of 241, but that was pretty easy under that we both talked about in that game as well, just because and like we thought, the Blazers didn't come along for the ride, only dropping 108 points that night. So they're not playing the Bucks at home. They're playing the Thunder, who, as you mentioned, are just a leaky defense at that point, where they just give up points all over the floor. It's different. The free throw attempts and points in the paint, obviously, where they get big boyed. Now Nurk not being there is fine, but I think Jeremy Grant's still going to have a field day against guys in this lineup, especially where I think there's a couple guys out for OKC that obviously the Dort's still out, but Jeremiah Robinson Earl still out as well. So you're going to be seeing a lot of like Kenrich Williams trying to get big and Jalen Williams trying to get big, etc. And obviously Gidey gets his rebounds, but that does leave them open to, I think, a much better and bigger front court for this Blazers team at this point. And Drew Eubanks has been balling, by the way, pretty well. So like giving him his props in that sense. Solid pickup, by the way, in fantasy if anybody's looking for a quick streamer. But yeah, I would say that the idea of the Thunder stopping the Blazers not there, but I also think Shai is going to get into the paint, and that's where also the Blazers are going to be extremely vulnerable in terms of Nurk not being in there to stop points in the paint, second chance points available for the long rangey guys that attack the rim for this Thunder team, and then Shai getting into the lane and doing what he wants, like he has against most teams, and then especially against this tiny little front court or back court rather.
Yeah, I mean, here's your mistake, thinking that Nurkic is a good thing to have against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. No, you got Eubanks, Nasir Little, and Trent Watford, who really got a ton of experience last year, as if, it was like the JV team playing the entire second half of the year, and those guys got their time, and they're going to be playing a lot harder, at least you can guarantee, than a guy like Yusuf Nurkic. And I think SGA is going to get his. He got his in both of those matchups, but it's the home road thing you got to look at more. That Portland, both these teams score 10 more points per game at home versus on the road and shoot a much starker percentage. Portland's defense is awful wherever they are.
Yeah.
So I think there is plenty to think about an over here, or maybe that kind of same game parlay. Say, look, both SGA and Dame are getting theirs tonight. But I mean, Portland, with those three guys in the front court, just the hustle to be able to shoot 8 for 27 from three and have a terrible assist to turnover ratio, but out rebound Golden State, beat Golden State, even with Poole and Clay going off, and it's all Dame. It's triple double and 16 for 16 at the free throw line. He will not lose 37 points per game over the course of a month. I would just much rather take that guy and the number one clutch team than OKC to replicate what they were able to do at the Lakers.
Yeah, especially with a small spread. I completely agree. It hasn't really moved too much, I don't think, right? Yeah, I mean, it started at basically this 4.5, so it's going to be probably hovering around there for the most part, and I think that's because it's, as we say, properly priced. Some people want to bet on the Thunder a little bit, I imagine, but like you said, it's not like they're covering 8-point spreads right now. They're expected to keep this game close in the end, and just a few free throws after the Blazers get up and Dame does his thing is good, but I would rather kind of bet on like you said, these guys to score. 242 is still a very high total. I'd really just prefer to look at Dame and Shai and how I think they're just going to kind of go tit for tat in this one, all their way to both getting over 30 points. Probably some nice specials on that one as well. So
bringing you 4 props here that I think are reliable and has something to do with the trade deadline here in this first one. I mean, Halliburton and the Pacers are hosting the Suns, who are on a back-to-back, who do not have any wing defense now with Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson gone, waiting on Kevin Durant, who's still injured, not going to play until after the break anyway. I mean, the Suns were not really able to put up much of a fight in Atlanta last night, and Trae Young was the catalyst that just kind of picked them apart. 36, 7, and 12 for the point guard. So I think Halliburton is a good way to target the entire Pacers offense without trying to get specific on who's going to torch these Suns. I do like the Pacers here at just -1 if it's going to hold around there, because I don't think the Suns, they just don't have the numbers. They don't have the gas in the tank to play on a back-to-back here with just Chris Paul. Devin Booker should be back for this one, however, to keep it competitive. So that is a positive for Halliburton, getting double-digit assists. Plus 115 for him to get double digits, for him to go over 9.5 assists, is really fantastic odds at DraftKings. I mean, he's a guy who averages 10.7 dimes at home, double-digit dimes in 5 of his last 7 at home. The one he did not get there, 2 he did not get there. I mean, they're matchups you can kind of expect. Toronto and his old team, Sac, who obviously was geared up to try to limit what he does. But Phoenix has been below average guarding guards over the last week or so. I mean, really the last 15 games, I think, for them, because of guys in and out of the lineup. And I mean, without Mikal Bridges, it's going to be a pretty notable drop, but we've only seen that one game so far. So I think definitely target his assists. His threes, for him to hit 3 threes, is also plus 115. I like that a little more. I mean, averages about 3 threes per game wherever he is. I think this one, if Booker's cooking, could have a little bit more scoring potential. But I'm just not touching his points at 18.5 yet. His usage rate is still pretty low since he came back from that elbow injury, getting 15.5 points, but still one of the best passers, facilitators in the game. I like him to follow up what Trey did, just setting up his teammates and maybe not scoring as much as Trey did last night against the Suns. So, looking at Pelicans and Cavs here, and the Cavs are an elite defense, but CJ McCollum is kind of the counter for that. I mean, even against guards where Cleveland is more vulnerable than they are in the front court, they give up almost nothing by the numbers. But CJ has found a way. I mean, he had 25 points on 36 usage in his debut against the Cavs when he was with the Pels last January. First game and first matchup in this situation is what I'm saying. Previous one, 21, 7-6 with Portland when the Cavs started to become an elite defense earlier that season. Only 28% usage. And yeah, his usage was skyrocketing without both Zion and Ingram. It dipped back as they tried to acclimate Ingram in that first 3 here, but now the Pels were able to snap out of their funk, and then they got another win against Atlanta by letting CJ cook. I mean, 32% usage rate, did not shoot the ball particularly well, 8 for 23 from the field, but did hand out 7 dimes. The ball was in his hands a lot, and that led to a win. So now in his last 8, averaging 22 points, 6.5 assists or so. I like combining the two. 27.5 points assists is nearly even money at DK. Not much worse for just the points at 21.5. He's just so reliable getting around 20. It's just a question of this getting a tick over than you might expect. And the Cavs being on the road here is a huge factor in terms of them not shutting teams down. Donnie Mitchell also kind of liked to finally get cooking himself after resting an easy one over the Pistons. We know what he does on extra rest. His prop is 24.5 points. So I look for both these shooting guards to counter each other and for this one to be surprisingly high scoring perhaps. But in any case, yeah, CJ is the man for New Orleans. So bound to take an under at some point. I'm going under with LaMelo Ball, 23.5 points. And kind of like the under on his threes here, 3.5 is plus. They're both about plus 100 or a little bit better because LaMelo is chucking. Fair enough. I mean, the Hornets don't have much else, but numbers take a little bit of a dip on the road here. He's in Boston tonight. He averages just under 22 on the road versus almost 25 at home. So he did have some pretty good scoring games against Boston at home. These teams played back-to-back last month in Charlotte. But it's a different story now in Boston. The Celtics playing at a 94 pace in their last 5 at home. Defense is a pretty good 110 rating. Could have their interior guys back, Rob, Will, or Al Horford. And still no Marcus Smart, which has surprisingly affected their offense more than their defense. And so the Celtics are not playing these high-scoring games that we saw in Charlotte. Also, Tatum had 51 in that last one. And that was when LaMelo was able to come back and hit 5 threes to probably get most of his points there. I mean, but he still went in his previous 2 against the Celtics, 1 for 12 from the 3-point line. So they know how to force him into some bad shots. In that game where Tatum drops to 50, He shot 8 for 23 from the floor. He was a minus 18. I mean, it's not winning basketball, and that's the biggest problem here is that the Hornets have lost 7 straight to the Celtics, 4 straight by double digits. They're getting owned by this team, and they're, I mean, frankly, not trying to win games at all at this point in the season. They've lost 5 straight at this point, and I think the Celtics can have their way with them, depending who suits up. I mean, Jaylen Brown might not be in, but and Smart's still out, but I think the Celtics have enough depth with Derek White and Brogdon guarding LaMelo. I think they have enough to force him into more bad shots and potentially pull away so that he's not playing the fourth quarter. And so under on the points, maybe the threes, maybe the PRA if you do think it's a blowout, but I think he's just not going to score that much. And close it out with a pretty unknown guy, I guess, Drew Eubanks for the Blazers. Wanted to take Dame, and I would not hate anyone for taking 35 points, which is where Dame's prop is at. He's averaging 37 over the last month. I think if you take that, you should take it in a win. I think if you take it, you should parlay it with SGA over 30 points because you're going to need the Thunder to come along and force an exciting high-scoring game. I don't think there's going to be a ton of defense in this game at all. After OKC trades away, Portland trades away Josh Hart, and Nurkic is out, and Justice Winslow is out, and they traded away Gary Payton. They have literally no good perimeter defense now. So Eubanks is going to step in for Nurkic, as he has been the last 8, averaging modest 8 points, 6 rebounds, a couple assists. So 18.5 PRA seems kind of high. I think maybe you just want the points 8.5 because of what I'm saying here. This total is 242, and I don't think either team has much to defend with. OKC's third game in 4 nights. They're coming off an emotional letdown after getting way up to play the Lakers on LeBron's record-breaking night. So I do think this game will be very freewheeling in terms of getting stats. And if Eubanks gets the minutes, he gets the numbers. He played at least 32 minutes in 3 straight against OKC, totaling 50 points, so 17 points a game. That includes a 27-point, 14-rebound game when he was basically the focal point in March against OKC. Both teams were tanking at that point 2 seasons ago. But, it shows you what he can do. He's a talented offensive player from the Spurs pipeline. And, he's going to slide into that Nurk role a little bit. And 9 points is just very low for a guy who's going to play. When he got 32 minutes without Nurk when he played the Thunder, 9 points, 7 rebounds, pretty modest. But, again, the lack of wing options right now for the Blazers and the spot the Thunder are in, I think both offenses will have an easy time producing. I think Dame will be setting him up for some easy ones so that he gets at least 10 points. So 4 player props on the board here. Check out thelines.com. Use our prop finder tool to find all the best odds for your own bets here and monitor that injury report, those trade deadline news as we head closer to a big 11-game slate this Friday. And until we see you next, happy betting.